copy of an email that the committee was provided relative to issues you had raised. And just for the record, the document we provided Mr. Stump was referred to in an email or summary of a meeting that occurred on July 4th, 2012 at the Hyatt Hotel Saipan. Participants were Mr. Don Kurtz, Mr. Ken Mahmood, Mr. Alan Fletcher, Mr. Gil Burnbrick, and Mr. Ed Buckingham. And the in the summary, it talks about Mr. Jim Stump, I guess, providing his review and raising 71 issues, and that would be I guess brought back to the table for further discussion. Mr. Stump, are you familiar with is that what you were referring to as far as your recommendations? Is the 71 issues you raised?
Well, yes, it was I gave Mr. Burnbridge a copy of the agreement where I marked issues that need further examination. There were, I guess, 71.
Mr. Stump, it appears the committee, although we have reference to your review, it doesn't appear that we have. Let me backtrack. You stated you made comments to the actual agreement. Did you formalize your review through a memo or any other formal type of correspondence?
No, because I really, no, I just looked at the agreement and I made notes in for further consideration. And then Mr. Burnbridge came over to me to talk to me about it, and I said, here are my notes.
So all you really had were notes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, as I stated, my involvement was really limited to, I think, one meeting.
Can the committee inquire that in that one meeting who was present?
Ed Buckingham and Gil Burnbridge.
Can you tell us what was discussed in that meeting?
Yes, as I stated previously, I informed them that it was a very technical agreement, that there were many issues that needed further consideration, and that they should involve CUC directly on these matters.
Thank you. And on or about when was this meeting?
Mr. Chairman, I really... well,
at least a month.
Well, okay, it was before this, before any of these Hyatt meetings, so probably at the end of June.
Thank you. Members? Representative De La Cruz.
Good morning, Mr. Stump.
Good morning, sir.
And thank you for being with us this morning. Mr. Stump, you stated earlier that you basically weren't very, how you say, you weren't really a participant during these proceedings with regards to the PPA.
That's correct.
Okay. And basically, you had a request to look over the PPA itself because of your experience dealing with capital improvement and technical issues for infrastructures, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Mr. Stump, I I noticed that on one of the emails on July 22nd, 2012, from Mr. Alan Fletcher, you were CC'd a copy of the email, and this is from Alan Fletcher to the governor, Governor Fittil, and also to, I believe, the former Attorney General, Edward Buckingham. Basically, he sent out this email to the governor and Mr. Buckingham with regards to the status and comment, I believe, of the PPA. Mr. Fletcher basically stated that the PPA, and this is as of July 22nd, as originally presented, was a one-sided agreement with many pitfalls for CUC and CNMI. Did you read this email, Mr. Stump? Do you recall reading the email?
No, and I don't have a copy of that in front of me, number one. So I can't, it's hard for me to speak to it, but I cannot recall that email.
Sarge? Can you give to Mr. Stump that email and see whether he can maybe recall if he had read?
I do not recall seeing this. But I was out of the process by this time, so I was really focused on other issues. So I really wasn't part of the team at this point for review.
Okay. And I brought that out to see whether that particular email correlated with your 71 points that of concern that you had brought out to Mr. Burnbrick and the other individuals.
I'm not sure of the question. Power purchase agreements are very, very technical, and there's all kinds of issues that need full examination of them to make sure that you understand the full nature and scope. And that's what my points were, is that, hey, have we fully examined this? What's this? What's this? What are all these issues? Are they fully examined? That was the nature of my comments, and that you really need full examination of all these and a full understanding. I really, from go to there to Mr. Fletcher's comments, it's hard for me to relate those two issues. I mean, they're separate issues. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stump, and I understand. Now, going back to the 71 points of concern, do you, by any chance, recall some of them in that PPA that you looked at? Out of the 71, maybe 4 or 5 items that you think at the time warranted some corrections, if you will, on the PPA itself?
No, because the 71 points weren't really necessary problems, but they were issues that, hey, we need to fully examine these issues, and they were in the process of developing, Ed and Mr. Buckingham and Gil, of developing the final contract, so I don't really know where they went from there in the final drafting.
Okay, so you didn't recall what some of these issues were?
No.
Even though they weren't concerns?
No.
But you thought that maybe they needed to reassess the language or the provisions in that particular contract?
No, I couldn't really, I mean, that was in June, and I really couldn't identify them specifically.
Okay, but you think Mr. Burnbrick then would have that information?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mr. Stump.
Any other members? Representative Sdllc.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, Mr. Stump. As the Governor's Legal Counsel, well, let me first ask this. Did the draft, final draft, so-called final draft, ever came back to the AG's office, to the Governor's office? The PPA?
Well, I've seen the documents as you have that have been that are currently in existence, but it was in the Attorney General's office.
Well, and maybe let me rephrase that. You said you probably made your notes of concern in a draft or preliminary agreement, and that you made notes in the actual draft, and somebody mentioned the 7-1 concerns, and that in that actual document you stated earlier that you turned it over to Assistant Attorney General Burnbrick and the AG. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Subsequent to you making the notations of concerns, did the write-up ever made it back to the Governor's office?
Let me see. First off, I don't know if you classify them as concerns. I made notes on issues to be examined. Okay. I don't want to say that. Okay. And as to, I think I understand what you're asking for. Did someone actually get back to me on all 71 issues? No. No one ever got back to me.
No, that's not what I asked. I asked do you know whether a subsequent write-up or a subsequent draft after you made your notations ever made it back to the Governor's office?
No.
You as the legal counsel, is it normal that as the Governor's legal counsel you're left out of a final agreement or a contract?
Well, my role as the Governor's legal counsel is really on special projects. The Attorney General has the role of reviewing all contracts, and my role is, on specific projects that require, that the Governor wants to put particular emphasis on. I don't review every single document.
Okay, and I understand that, but I guess what I'm just trying to see to get here is whether any time after the late June or early July, whether you ever had the opportunity to look at that PPA.
No.
Even after the Governor signed off on it?
Well, I think I've seen copies of the current documents. I've seen copies of those. Yeah, I've seen copies of the current documents.
And if did you take the opportunity to review the signed off PPA?
I've looked at it. Yes.
Were any of your 701 notes of concern addressed?
I didn't really do that analysis to look through all my comments to see if they've been incorporated. I think that the my answer is no.
You don't recall looking at, out of 7-1, you don't even recall looking at 1, 2, 3, whether those notations of concern were addressed in the signed off PPA?
No. I raised my concerns. I gave them to the Attorney General, and I really haven't done an in-depth analysis of the current status of the documents. I haven't really done that in-depth analysis. I haven't been required to. I haven't been asked to, and so I haven't done an analysis. I've seen the documents, but I haven't done an analysis of those documents.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Stump. Mr. Chair.
Members? Any other members? Representative De La Cruz.
Chair, just a quick one. Mr. Stump, I'm sorry. After looking over the signed PPA, what did you think about it? Did you think it was good for the CNMI? Do you think it was good for CUC? Or did you just look at it and say, well, it's been signed,
Well, excuse me. I haven't really, as I stated, I haven't done an in-depth analysis of it. The economic, I think the main issue is the economic impact of the agreement. And as I think everyone is aware, the governor has stated that his objective in any power purchase agreement is trying to get the utility rate down to approximately 18 cents. And that has been his standard. So really, to determine whether that standard is met, you really need to do an in-depth analysis of the agreement, and that requires significant review, and that has not been done.
Thank you, Mr. Stump. And I'm thinking that in order for one to do really this in-depth analysis, you would like to at least be able to determine what kind of equipment are you looking at. Is that correct?
Well, you have to understand the full scope and the economic basis and the factors that would affect the bottom line cost. That's correct.
And in this case, we were looking at a 50 megawatt diesel reciprocating power plant, if you will, but we really don't know exactly what type of an equipment this is. There's no brand, there's no model, there's no nameplate. Really, there's nothing that we know of what type of a power generator we are getting. So would you say that is one aspect of looking and determining whether this would be consistent with the governor's wanting to have 18 cents per kilowatt?
You're sort of asking me to speculate on it. I think that type of analysis should be really, it's beyond my scope. It should come from CUC and the economic analysis people.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stump.
Further members? Representative Sablon.
Thank you, Chairman. Mrs. Stump, as the governor's legal counsel, are you aware of another company? And I think I don't have the full legal name. or corporation name, but Midland, does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Have you ever seen or are you aware of any proposal by Midland who I assume are also interested in constructing a facility such as the one being proposed by Saipan Development?
Yeah, we yes, the CNMI receives proposals from different firms almost on a monthly basis of agencies that want to provide different services for us. Midland is another one who is interested in providing a lower cost energy, but as I stated, we get them almost on a monthly basis.
Aside from Midland, are you, as the Governor's Legal Counsel, also aware of any other investor who's come forth with a proposal similar to the Saipan Development's proposal of building a new facility?
As I stated, yeah, we get proposals, for not only the power plant, but also alternative energies, geothermal, solar, all different agencies wanting to do, services for the Commonwealth.
And how did the Governor's office address those proposals?
As I stated, we get proposals on an ongoing basis, and almost, they're handled in a variety of ways. We do inquiries, we start to look at some of the facts, and, we do initial, just some initial examination, meeting with people. I don't think there's a specific formal process.
In earlier witnesses in regards to testifying in regards to how one gets a sole source contract, one of the justifications for sole source is that when there's only one vendor or company who's able to provide a certain service or product, and knowing that there are these other companies who have stepped forward and submitted proposals to or make their intentions known to the Governor's office of their intention or to offer proposals for similar facilities. How is the source justification allowed here when there are others who have stepped forth? It's my opinion that that's why we have the RFP process, so that we examine all options to get the best deal for our people. I also understand that another company was given a notice to come in and conduct a study in regards to the CNMI's power needs, only to find out that an agreement was signed off in March. So for the record, there have been other companies who have stepped forth and made their intentions known, that they want to offer proposals in regards to addressing the power plant facilities or new power plant facilities for CUC. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Stump.
Thank you, Mr. Sablan. Mr. Stump, as the Governor's Legal Counsel, what was your role in this matter?
As I stated previously, I just had the review of the initial one review of the PPA, I believe it was, and I gave my comments to it and made a recommendation that the CUC should be directly involved. And that was really a conclusion.
And you mentioned that happened before the July 4th meeting, correct?
I'm looking at these dates. I think it was in June.
Okay,
Mr.
thank
Chairman.
you. Mr. Stump, my review of the correspondence that's in our packet leads me to believe that your role went further than that, and your participation was much more involved than that. We have correspondence between you and Mr. Fletcher. We have an email on August 8th from Mr. Fletcher to you saying this agreement was pushed through way before it being ready. We tried to offer as much technical analysis as we could on a fast track, but any savings or break-even are based on unsubstantiated numbers and very preliminary / tentative rate analysis. Many of the terms are deal breakers in my estimation and would put CUC in default early on in the agreement. That leads me to, first of all, that there was still correspondence between you and CUC subsequent to your providing your note and recommendation, and it appears to be a response to your perhaps request for an updated, maybe a status report on what's happening with CUC's review, and that's on August 8th. And then further, earlier on, again, on July 22nd, is the email that Representative Sablan was responding to or asking you questions about. And it had to do with what happens with all these other alternative energy projects the CNMI and CUC is currently negotiating. What happens to them if this project was signed, if this contract was signed? And Mr. Fletcher raises concerns again. One, on the second paragraph, says that the proposed Sdllc power purchase agreement has some roadblocks to integrating renewable energy. If left as is, they could make the solar number one, they could make even the solar number one, I believe that refers to some type of solar project that the CNMI or CUC's currently working with, or maybe he has a contract or now a bid out for. It says it could make the solar number one financially hard to implement due to the take or pay provision. And so, this is Mr. Fletcher responding to you. So there are obviously more issues that are being discussed about the status of this project. And these correspondence are going to you way after the late June or early July time period that you claim you were involved with. So, Mr. Stump, again, let me ask you, is your role. What is your role in this project? Because it doesn't coincide with what you're telling us.
Well, as I stated, specifically, my role was very limited in the development of those documents. I don't know what the date of those documents are. Do you have the date of those documents?
Yes, sir. I mentioned it already. The email regarding the alternative energy.
No. The documents of the PPA that's dated.
The dates I have are basically emails to you, and one of them is on July 22nd, and another one again from Alan Fletcher to you is dated August 8th.
Mr. Chairman, I'm referring to the PPA itself. I believe the date on that is in July, and in early July, when that was actually the date the Attorney General has on that document. And that was the date for the formation or the establishment of that document. And my involvement was specifically, as I stated, it was involved with providing those comments. So, as I stated, my role and participation was very limited. I have ongoing conversations with CUC on a daily basis related to other issues, but not related to the formation or the finalization of those documents.
Clear, but it does relate, both emails relate to certain provisions of the contract. The July 22nd is relative to the take or pay provision of the contract. The August 8th correspondence relate to the calculation of the rates. And also other terms that, in Mr. Fletcher's opinion, can be considered deal breakers. So it just shows really that you were continuously corresponding with CUC with regards to the contract provisions of the PPA that you may have. I'm not sure which PPA agreement you reviewed, but there appears to be more than just your initial review and your 71-point notes.
Mr. Chairman, the subsequent comments concern the further analysis of the agreement. As you're aware, it was proposed that an economic analysis be done of the agreement. I believe that all those comments that you're referring to are in relation to analysis of the economics of the agreement. And yes, I was involved with trying to analyze or starting to do an economic analysis of that, but that is a separate and distinct component.
Mr. Stump, prior to the signature or the signing of the contract, did you give any review or opinion or guidance to the governor or recommendations to the governor to sign it, or did you give any kind of recommendations to the governor before it was consummated?
Yeah, that was being, the review and development of it was being spearheaded by Mr. Buckingham and Mr. Bainbridge, and mine was only in a limited technical review of the document.
Thank you, Mr. Stump. Any other members? Representative Sablan.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Tom, are you in any way involved with the proposals for renewable energy proposals?
Yes, I am.
With PPA, with the signing of the PPA, how does the PPA affect those proposals for renewable energy?
The PPA is a critical element of any renewable project because it sort of lays out. There's two documents that are critical: the interconnection agreement and the power purchase agreement. Those two documents, they each have a different role, but the power purchase agreement sort of identifies the nature of the services that are going to be provided by either party, the duties. It's basically the contractual form that identifies the duties and obligations of each party.
Now, because you are involved in the renewable energy proposals, have you looked at the PPA in detail to see how the existing proposals are or will be affected by the PPA if implemented?
Are you asking me? Have I looked at the current the proposed PPAs?
No, the signed PPA.
Oh, the signed one.
Yeah, have you looked at the signed PPA to see how it affects the existing proposals for renewable energy projects?
No, my focus has been on the proposed PPAs for the solar and geothermal and waste energy. I've been focusing on those and those specific components, and really they had an RFP out already on those. So I'm sort of analyzing it in perspective of the existing RFP that went out. So my focus is on the RFP that was put out and what is the current PPA.
So with the RFPs, I'm assuming that the RFPs are for the renewable energy,
Yes.
and with the signing of the Saipan development PPA, you haven't taken the opportunity to see how the Saipan development PPA would affect those RFPs for the renewable project?
Well, no, because when they were sent out by CUC, it was in a I would assume that CUC had a grand plan for allocation of a combination of renewable energy and base load, and that those were the RFPs were constructed in view of that larger structure. That would be a role of the executive director and the power. I didn't develop those RFPs. I'm just looking at the current proposed PPAs.
And the reason I ask that is because I'm assuming that the RFPs for the proposed, what's the dates that these RFPs for these renewable projects, when were they issued?
I don't have it here in front of me, but those would be questions more for CUC.
But you just mentioned that your concentration is on those PPAs for those renewable projects.
Yeah, I'm looking at the current proposed PPAs and seeing how they are structured.
And the reason I ask that is because I am concerned that here we are under the Saipan development PPA, a proposal for 50 megawatt power plant, and right now the latest information out of CUC is that we're generating per load demand around 30 megawatts, and we have the PPA, the Saipan development PPA, which would tie up CUC on a minimum of load order, megawatt load order. So I am assuming that this Saipan development PPA would greatly affect or impact ongoing efforts to have or implement alternative energy production.
Those questions, they're valid questions, but I think those should be directed towards the executive director of CUC, because really they do the power planning and the future power planning, and they know that the current demand and how it would be affected by that.
Okay, so Mr. Stump, let me then rephrase. In your opinion, with what you know of the renewable energy PPAs, and because you've already stated earlier that you have reviewed the signed PPA for Saipan development, is there anything in the two agreements that say would negatively impact each other?
I don't think can respond to that. That's more of a CUC question. I'm just looking. I don't mean to be evasive, but I have. My role is limited. I'm not doing all the power projections of it. I don't mean to be evasive, but I'm just trying. I have to limit my comments to my specific areas.
And I just thought I'd ask that because if you've got companies out there that have stepped forward, are in the process of submitting proposals through an RFP already issued by the government, and only to find out that the government on the other end has signed off on a proposal for a 50 megawatt diesel power plant that does not take into effect how you incorporate renewable energy production. That's why I asked that, because
I understand.
These companies up there are when they submit their proposals for an RFP, are assuming that they are playing pursuant to established rules of the games in regards to how you procure or get services or from the government. And we ask ourselves why we see it hard for investors to come in and invest here and hopefully help revive our economy when companies such as those that have stepped forth and offered proposals to the government of producing lower cost renewable energy, find out that they're not playing an even playing field, because they're being subjected to an RFP process, while this one company is being given the opportunity to try to do business with the government through a sole source contract. Mr. Chairman, are you?
And before I recognize Representative Tep, if there's no objection, can I just get a clarification from Mr. Stump regarding a question that Mr. Sablan posed? Thank you. And it is, Mr. Stump, it is relevant to Mr. Sablan's concerns. I now understand that as part of your role as the legal counsel to the governor and your capacity to provide reviews of capital improvement projects and renewable energy being a capital improvement projects, you did kind of state that those did fall under something you would review. And because we do have an email from CUC themselves basically telling you that this PPA, the Saipan Development PPA, does have roadblocks to integrating renewable energy. And you stated the two components, I think was the term you used, to when looking at how renewable energy can be incorporated, the two components of a contract that would be relevant would be the Is it the integration into the grid?
Interconnection agreement.
Interconnection agreement, there you go. And the other one would be the take or pay provision.
The power purchase agreement,
Power purchase, well, the
PPA.
PPA. But more specifically, in the PPA, the provision relative to how much power CUC was to buy from, let's say, Sdllc in terms of base load, what is the minimum purchase requirement? If the contract required that we purchase all of our energy needs exclusively from Saipan Development, then how can we purchase energy from any renewable energy contractor is the question here. If there is no allowance for any if there's no allowance for any other purchase of energy, such as the Saipan Development contract, how can we consider other alternative energy? So those are the two components of the contract with Sdllc that can allow us to determine whether we can in fact purchase alternative energy. As I've said, you said, I'm sorry, as the email from Alan Fletcher to you has stated, that this contract appears to have problems that may allow us to integrate alternative energy into our current grid. Knowing that, and knowing that that is one of your roles, is to review alternative energy projects, what was your response to CUC when they raised these issues?
Well, as I stated, I believe Mr. Fletcher's email is part of the ongoing process of evaluating that agreement. And that agreement, or that document, and its impact is still being fully determined, and that the nature of and its implications on renewable energy has not been fully examined.
Mr. Stump, did you raise that concern with anyone, with CUC, with the governor, that, hey, Mr. Governor, as your lead man in reviewing alternative energy projects, the Saipan Development contract may pose a problem with the CNMI being able to integrate renewable energy into the grid, into the Commonwealth? Did you ever raise that concern?
Did I raise that specific concern? I think I did not have that specific discussion, no.
And the only reason why I say this is, one, you are the person that does review policies relating to alternative energy, and two, you were made aware by CUC that this project, Saipan Development, may pose a problem in the future with regards to any attempt to integrate renewable energy into our current utilities. You're aware of that, at least from Mr. Fletcher's email to you. So if you are in a capacity to be able to...
Well, I think, it's speculative at this point because, the full nature of that documents has not been determined, number one. Number two, they're trying to project what the future demand for power is in the Commonwealth. Number three, there's a lot of customers in the Commonwealth who are not on the CUC power system. Number four, the specific nature of the alternative energies has not been clarified. You know, they're saying solar, but solar has a very limited application and only during certain time periods of the day. So those are all issues that really haven't been fully clarified at this point. So therefore, you know, all these issues, when you look at the totality of the electrical system here, you know, there's a lot of factors that have to be considered, and you know, I don't think it's any good to just speculate on them. You have to nail it down specifically on what the power demand is going to be and what the role of those different elements are, and that has not been finalized. Those issues have not been fully examined.
Thank you, Mr. Stump. What I'm basically hearing from you, Mr. Stump, as the Governor's legal counsel, you're telling us that this contract did not receive the full economic analysis, or that there was no detailed or in-depth review of the contract that, in your own words, were necessary prior to the signing of the contract.
No.
Is that a fair statement?
No, that is not.
Well, you did say, okay, let me go back. You did state that you recommended that analysis be done because a lot of the terms of the contract were unclear, and that you basically suggested that CUC review it and that it undergo economic analysis or economic impact, and you did admit that those did not happen.
No, Mr. Chairman. I stated that I made suggestions that those be undertaken, and that I do not know, as I stated, the Attorney General and CUC was involved in further review of that. I don't know, I was not part of that review, and so I'm not privy, I can't speak to the analysis that they undertook.
Thank you, Mr. Stump. Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Stump, do you recall how many times you mentioned limited the past few minutes?
Limited, pardon me?
Do you recall how many times you mentioned the word limited?
No.
I count about 8. Do you recall that there were approximately or about 8 times that you mentioned limited in your statement?
Well, I think I made it clear that, yeah, I have limited.
Oh, within that
yeah.
range.
Right.
Okay, the reason why I say that is that because we need your help.
Well, I'm here to help.
You are not limited. You are not limited in providing us information so that this committee will formulate true information through your help, whether all these allegations are in fact true or they're a bunch of lies or false. Are we in agreement with that?
I'm here to provide the information I can on whatever issue you raise.
Thank you, sir. You mentioned that your role are on special projects, correct?
That's correct.
And that you mentioned that your role are limited,
That's correct.
and that you only initiate review on projects. Some projects.
Yeah.
Even proposed projects.
Yes.
Correct? Even current proposed PPA, correct?
Some, yes.
Some. How many current proposed PPA are you are you looking into?
Currently, I'm looking at the Solar One. and-
Just number.
Okay, 1, 2. Well, can I just clarify something?
Please.
Some of the earlier RFPs have been canceled, so right now I'm only doing, we're redrafting some RFPs.
Just number, please.
Just one, I guess.
So you are currently looking at the current proposed PPA 1?
Yeah, 1. I would say 1.
Okay. And that you are also tasked to review 702 CIP projects
That's correct.
as the special legal counsel to the administration or to the governor?
That I'm the contracting officer.
You're the contracting officer. And when you were asked to make comment on the sole source Saipan Development LLC, you only had limited time to look at. Is that correct?
It wasn't so much that I was asked to review it. A limited review. That's correct.
Let me quote. You said you looked at it.
I reviewed it. Yes.
No, you looked at it.
Okay.
You mentioned that you looked at it. Correct?
I looked at it. Yeah.
And that these are very, very, I'm quoting you, these are very, very technical examinations. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that you made notes on issues to be examined. Is that correct?
Yes.
And the appropriate entity to examine this so-called issue that you have looked at is CUC.
I specifically I gave those to the Attorney General, and I said that you should have CUC's
You
involvement.
recommend that to the Attorney General that it's supposed to be CUC, or I recommend that CUC provide further feedback on what you looked at.
I wanted CUC to be involved with the
Thank you,
PPA.
sir. And that you have no in-depth analysis of this thing that you looked at,
Right.
that you provided to the Attorney General.
That's
for
right.
The Attorney General for the Attorney General to consider whether CUC should be part of it.
That's correct.
Did you mention that to the Attorney General that CUC has to be a part of this examination or further examination?
As I stated, I said the CUC should be involved. That's correct.
But what you were looking at, as you were asked to, you believe it was only a PPA.
That's correct.
You weren't specific on what kind of PPA,
That's correct.
because you only looked at it and then you just,
Right.
and then as a counsel, and so that these are, or in your words, that this thing that I'm looking at is beyond my scope. Is that correct?
I wouldn't put it that way. I would say that it's a very technical document that requires, technical review.